If you're planning to build a career in the legal field, then this video is non-negotiable. Today I'm speaking with someone whose academic journey is nothing short of unbelievable. He has 4 certifications and diplomas, 1 bachelor's degree, 5 master's degree, and 2 PhDs. I'm honored to introduce Dr. Subramanyam Daraboina. Dr. Subramanyam is the founder of Prison Legal Associates. He's been practicing law for the last 25 years. And let me read out the list of his memberships so that I don't miss out anything. He is a member of Supreme Court Bar Association, Supreme Court of India. He is enrolled as an advocate with the Bar Council of Andhra Pradesh. He is a patron member for Telangana, formerly Andhra Pradesh, High Court Advocates Association, Hyderabad. He is a certified arbitrator, commercial, and he is a life member of Bar Association of all the lower courts in the city. Now, he has about 40 plus corporate clients in India and Dubai, for whom he serves as an in-house counsel. And he has a long list of small businesses and individual clients for whom he does legal consultation. Now, in today's discussion with Dr. Subramanyam, we are going to explore what is that inspired him to pursue so many qualifications. As per his experience, how to build a strong career in the legal field. What are the skill sets and mindset you need to have to succeed in the legal field? And his advice for freshers and young professionals who are seeking to make a career in the legal stream. Now, this is not just one-off episode. We're going to do a series with Dr. Subramanyam, wherein he will explain important legal topics that everyone should know, including how to protect yourself from cybercrimes and fraud, and what legal remedies exist. So if you don't want to miss this content that can literally protect your career and money, hit the subscribe button so that you do not miss out any upcoming videos. Before we start the conversation with Dr. Subramanyam, I would like to inform you that there are links of other videos which we have made for freshers and young professionals, which are there in this description. Also, there are links. So let's dive into the conversation with Dr. Subramanyam. Good evening, Doctor. Thank you for taking out time. I know you've been busy and you would have just come back from court and still you're able to take out time. Thank you. Right from the beginning, I think when I did your introduction also, I wanted to share with you that your profile is really extraordinary in terms of the qualifications. Most of the people actually struggle to do 1 master's and you managed to do 5 masters and 2 PhDs. So I'm sure a lot of viewers when they watch this video and they would get inspired if they get to know what initially drew you towards law and what was the motivation behind you gathering all these multiple degrees across disciplines.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Shashikant. Yes, it's been a long day at court, but it's an interesting subject always, so I always find time. So I'm happy to speak with you on this. Well, now to give a quick answer to the question that you raised, I've been facing this question quite often. I will briefly say this, that the journey towards education wasn't very simple. It was a complex journey. And then when I've consciously chosen to walk into the field of law, I did my research and I did my kind of understanding about law. Law emerges out of different aspects that emerge out of society. Therefore, a lawyer cannot just be a journalist kind of a person, or it can't be having a general qualification to go on with. It did require for me to understand that I need to pursue different streams of education to basically understand the litigation that comes out of a human conflict. The human conflict is not always singular and it is not a specific thing that it stands on its own. Therefore, it was required for me to get into the subject matter to understand the different streams of social life, and it immediately required for me to understand different streams of subjects as well. And that's one of the reasons why I had to pursue different lines of education, falling across different disciplines. Besides that, I also realized that, the Indian courts, especially when we walk through the lower courts and the high courts and the Supreme Court, it has got its own benchmark kind of, disciplines that are to be followed, and then there are different ways the litigation has to be handled. That made me all the more understand that I should pursue multiple levels of education. Therefore, I was pursuing education while concentrating on the legal subject as well. So what I did was I did manage to have my focus directly on the legal side.
Okay.
By adopting the different subjects, getting into the different streams of different subjects, and then therefore I thought I would be able to better serve as a lawyer, because I would need to understand the conflict in full to deliver any kind of professional service. So that is actually got me to get into all these multiple degrees and post graduations, etc.
Good, good. But was there any turning point, a case, mentor, or incident that shaped your philosophy as a lawyer or an arbitrator?
Well, this question is like this. You see, what happens is we will often, when we are dealing with the case, we will have an irrefutable case on hand,
Yeah.
which requires a lot of energies to be put in, lot of financial status of the disputed parties, etc., to come into place. But what happens is, though we have a case on hand, we will need to understand and analyze it in a way that what will be the cost factor that comes on to the client, and what is the exercise that a legal professional has to do into it. Therefore, every case that comes to your hand brings you to a different level of challenge. So you can't precisely point out at a case and say that this is what it is and this is what which has driven me to this case. So every new case that comes on hand is a challenge by itself, because it again emerges from different corners. Say, for example, if I'm working on a contractual litigation, the contractual litigation doesn't just end there as a dispute or a commercial dispute between the parties. No, it touches upon the social aspects, the production of a particular product, or it can lead to unemployment, it can lead to some other complications connected to it. So every case by itself comes up as a challenge. So I would be working on it like that, so I will not be able to particularly say, okay, this is the case by itself, it is. But every case drives you to a new point where you will have to get yourself educated to take it forward from there.
Okay.
That is how I've been pursuing the career.
But is there any person in the legal field that you always looked up to, or you thought that you draw inspiration from that personality?
Yes, of course. There are many people that I've come across in my legal career.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is like this. What happens is, we might come across to listen to a very good articulation by a senior most advocate standing in a high court, or a junior advocate standing in a lower court coming on the way, and discuss about the subject. But in my legal career, I have come across few senior advocates of the Telangana High Court Association, where I kind of drew inspiration on the ground that they get into the nitty-gritty of the subject, not just looking at it as a litigation. They try to get to the bottom of the case as to why the litigation arose and what could be the best way of solving it. It's not just about filing a case, or it's not just about taking the matter to the court of law and then trying to put up your best front and saying that this is the way the case has to be presented in light of the provisions of law, etc., and therefore the case. It's not that. For example, I've seen one senior advocate by name Mr. Sudarshan Reddy. He's a senior designated advocate. The way he follows the case was always very inspiring for me. What he does is that he always says, you bring case to me, and I have to, unless otherwise I understand the bottom root of the case, it can't be solved.
Okay.
So we get into the social aspect, we get into the financial aspect, we get into the logical aspect, we get into the technical aspect, we also get into the provision of law. So such kind of systematic approach towards dealing with the case will always find you in the court of law presenting to the best of your abilities in the best possible way, bringing about the core facts of the case. And that's what actually the real solicitation of a case means, which I learned from this gentleman.
Great. One question that comes to mind, since our discussion and podcast is more towards freshers and youngsters who want to take up legal profession as a career. Earlier, if somebody had to study law, the lines were very clear that you finish your graduation and then you pursue your LLB. But now I've seen a lot of colleges in the last few years offer law in graduation itself as a option. And a lot of youngsters are picking up this option in their journey. I'm not sure whether how serious they are about their career in law, but they are doing it because they feel it's very interesting and exciting. I think most part of it is glamorized by movies because movies have painted a very different picture, and many students are confused whether some people are taking up law just because it's an option, they find it interesting, but some students are confused between law, management, and civil services. Do you think there's any particular kind of mindset or skills that make somebody truly fit for a legal career?
Well, again, this is a very challenging question to answer. In fact, what happens is, even in my career also, I come across a lot of interns coming up to our offices and saying that we want to do an intern, and most of them are coming out of these 5-year law courses only.
Okay.
And I find most of them coming with us that simple mind, where not really get into the understanding of law, etc. Now, these integrated courses or courses, likewise I said, in the initial question that I was answering to you, is that to be a good lawyer, you need to have a definite understanding of different streams and different educational aspects and different subjects connected. That there's no doubt about it. But the point is, at that young age, a student walking into a 5 years law course with a great desire to become a topmost lawyer in the country or something like that, what happens is that the orientation with regard to law with these integrated courses, I feel, is definitely very poor. Very, very poor, in fact, barring those real, premium colleges that do not know how are they taking up. But then, in generally, I see that the orientation is so poor that the student often, is not made up to be a law student unless the student comes into the 4th year of academics.
True.
So therefore, what happens is that the orientation with reference to the subject, law, is not there in them. That brings them to a corner saying that, I'm in the 4th year, 4th semester, 5th semester, 6th semester, 8th semester, etc., but, I hardly have any understanding of law. So the integrated courses are definitely a good ones, but then the integration with law, how effective that can be and what kind of modus operandi that should be placed in, I think perhaps we are missing on them in the colleges, and therefore the students often get very confused. Very, very confused. What requires for any youngster to become a lawyer or to choose law as a profession is they need to test themselves that do they have that analytical rigor in them. That's most important. If that factor is driving them, that factor is kind of bringing their minds or their thought process into a place where they say that I can always want to analyze the different subjects of the society, therefore work towards some solutions. But that's where they are actually prepared to get. Probably that orientation is not there in these 5-year courses is one thing that I feel. And the other thing is that they should be intellectually honest towards themselves. Intellectually honest in the sense, a student, I've seen many of these interns coming up, some are really up for it. Because they have the drive and the passion is there within themselves. But I want to become a lawyer and I want to pursue this and so they are honest to themselves, saying that, okay, this is the field I'm in, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to sit on system, I'm going to do some research, I'm going to do a legal study, etc. That is there. Unless otherwise they are intellectually honest to themselves, and that will not show up a result. And one last point, one youngster should also have his resilience. They should be very resilient. They should have that kind of patience. As you said in your question itself, that being fantasized by these movie setups and all these things. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it works, because eventually movie is a commercial subject that they have to make money. At the end of the day, they'll add certain things, giving it a color, thinking that that's a very big subject, but that's not how it works. They should have all the resilience. They should have the real patience to get into the subject, study them, work hard, do a lot of research, do a lot of practice on it. Only then they can choose this career. But if they choose this career, yes, definitely in the growing time, especially in India, it's a really an evolving subject, and it's getting all the importance that is required now.
Yeah, true. I agree with you, because more often what happens, people look at only the outcome, and when they get carried away with just the outcome, they actually lose sight of the groundwork that needs to be done. A case when is being dealt in the court, and what they see and get impressed, whether it's in movie or in real life, for me itself, based on my interaction with you over the last few years, I realized that the case at the end, when you're talking, is the tip of the iceberg. Behind that, There is so much of groundwork that needs to happen. So you're right. I think the youngsters, if they have it in them, they have the ability to get into details, analyze it, study it, then I think they should take up. But if they think, okay, I have done my law, I'm qualified now, I have the degree, and I can just go and talk in the court like a hero, then I think they are mistaken. So I agree with you totally. But
that's one factor. They should come over it. No, and that's where the orientation comes and helps them a lot. The point is this, especially in the Indian setup, what's happening is the moment you think about becoming a lawyer, you just get fantasized towards, saying that I'll put up a coat up and go and stand in the court and say something and come out. That's not what it is. It's very important for them to get that kind of orientation that wearing a black coat is not just a symbol of you being a lawyer. It's a serious responsibility that you own up. You own up to say that I'm going to solicit the dispute between two disputed parties. That means you're literally dealing with the life of a disputed party. So it comes up with a lot of responsibilities. It comes up with a lot of understanding, a lot of patience. As I said, then they need to focus more on the subject. Only then they can come up with. Now that orientation is not there. I don't really find it in any of the youngsters.
True. No, I'm in agreement because I have also interacted with youngsters and I echo what you're saying. But if somebody is wanting to choose now the legal field for his education purpose, there are multiple law schools across India, from national law universities to traditional universities. How do you think a student should choose and pick which one is good for him? Any inputs from your side?
See, talking about choosing a university, well, now the subject has gone a bit far, in the sense that a lot of these private players who are into education are coming up with some different kinds of concept universities. They're trying to, parallelly develop the syllabus into a different way where the technology is brought into play, or different methods or methodologies are introduced, and probably they're adopting some kind of, technique which the advanced countries are also adopting. And all that is done. Now, but essentially what is required for a student to choose up is that you have to go by the history of the university that is produced, what kind of students, what kind of legal luminaries are there who have been studying from different universities. And that's more important, because this education is not just starting away with some kind of fluent way of understanding subject. That's not what it starts for. It starts with a basic foundation of understanding where are we. We need to understand the social setup and how the dispute actually arises, how it spreads, what kind of complications it gets into. And that's where all these traditional subjects and the people who are holding some traditional legal knowledge and the professors, they impart very good legal knowledge. Now that depends on it. So nowadays what happens is, like, for example, you have all these tech colleges come up with advanced technology saying that, all right, you at a click of a button, you are there, I'll give you this research, that research. No, that's not the way it works. It works, you have to first get into the traditional setup, try to understand the subject, then get into the technology. So we need to essentially find those universities who actually work on the fundamentals of law. Get the student be more stronger on the fundamentals, because the more stronger you're on the fundamentals, the more effectively you can use the technology, and most effectively you can do the research. The result obviously will be good. If you lack on fundamentals, everything is gone, right? And that's the current day's problem.
So, in other words, what you're telling is the university or the college where you are going to study law is totally, linked to what has been their previous track record in terms of their alumni, in terms of how strong their students have turned out to be in the real field, and they look at that, analyze it, and then take a call.
That's true.
True. Okay. But if there are people who are not up to going to courtroom practice, but they are interested in law, what are the other lesser known but rewarding legal career options? For example, I'm referring to maybe something like arbitration, corporate law, legal tech. These not necessarily require a person to go to courtroom, but a lot of background work that can be done. What are some options? These are just coming as a layman to me, that these are 3-4 options. Can you give us some more insight onto that to young students?
This is a very interesting question. Now, how I look at it is like this. If in a classroom there are 10 students who are pursuing law, and all of them come out with colors in terms of academic achievements. What happens is in all these 10 students, there will be an individual person who will have the way to receive a dispute, way to address a dispute, and they will have their own mechanism in understanding the subject. Once the fundamentals click into the minds of these qualified lawyers, what happens is that they will have their own thought processes set in that, okay, if X is the case, I'm going to deal it Y way, I'm going to deal it Z way. Then what happens is that particular candidate or a student should kind of introspect on his or herself and try to understand, am I made to actually go and stand before the bench, is point number one, or am I made to sit and do an effective draft, point number two, or am I made to literally crack open the case and literally divide it into different portions where the case can be well presented, or am I made to sit in a chamber and give effective legal solutions. Now, these are the things that the introspection will lead them to. Then they have to identify, they've got to kind of self-question themselves, all right, they've got to speak to themselves and say, all right, this is my talent and this is how I am made up of. Someone is kind of outspoken, someone is less spoken, someone is kind of reserved, someone is extrovert, depends on that. They have to choose. Articulation essentially means that you've got to receive the question falling out of the bench and reciprocate in a way that the bench or the learned judge should be convinced to walk along with you in terms of your solicitation process. Thereby you get an order. Now that's not the cup of tea for everybody.
True.
So any qualified lawyer can essentially get into a regulatory policy analyst. He can always be a legal tech person. He can always be an ethics officer. He can always be an in-house legal counsel. So there are different options. It isn't the case that everybody has to go and stand before the bench and say, all right, I'm going to present my case. So that's definitely will be anybody's vision will once you're qualified as a lawyer. But then, you've got to identify your inner self. These are the different branches. Law, if I have to go and stand before the bench and start presenting my case, it is the last step. But the first step begins at, literally ripping the case apart and trying to understand the different aspects of the dispute. What is the plus and minus? Where are we standing? How are we doing our research in terms of supporting our grounds of argument, etc. So all these things are different branches. So in an office, these are the things. You need an analyst, you need a special guy, you need a technology guy, you need an in-house counsel guy, you need a consultation person. All these people put together, that's when a draft comes out and eventually filed before the court and the matter is being advanced for arguments. So there are different branches. It all depends on the student or the qualified guy should speak to him or herself and say, oh, this is my inner strength, so let me work on this. Definitely they will excel.
Okay. But in terms of the opportunities that are available, which one would you think has maximum opportunities? I wouldn't call it more rewarding, because rewarding purely depends on the organization you choose to work with. But in terms of opportunities, where do opportunities exist more? Any inputs from your side?
Opportunities definitely stand in corporates for the simple reason is that every corporate has a defined structure and a defined subject to work at, and it definitely has a forecast as to what could be the probable litigation, and if there is any litigation, are we ready with to deal with an in-house counsel, or ready to deal with a particular budget allocated to it, etc. So the opportunities are there, and then the exposure towards understanding one specialized subject will be definitely there in corporates. And so far as taking up the advocacy is concerned, it depends on how you break down the cases and how you excel it, how you succeed yourself. It is kind of success based, and it is also a long journey which does not really have a definite assured financial assistance. It might get bigger over a period of time. That's a different issue. But then to begin with, it's not the case. But if it is with corporates, yes, you are assured for a certain definite financial assistance, and which has got certain definite legal work to be done.
Okay. But are there any particular streams in the legal opportunities which are threatened by AI?
No, I wouldn't call it as it's threatened by AI. See, since AI is kind of a new entrant in our lives generally with reference to every profession. It is not limited to legal alone. Every profession that is largely.
True.
But what I feel is the artificial intelligence has to be used very intelligently by the user. Often what's happening is here, especially when we see the documents when we're working with our juniors, when it used to be the case that if we ask them to write an affidavit, they should take about hours together, days together with all of mistakes. coming back to us and saying, getting corrections and whatever the instructions to be passed. But that's not the case anymore. The moment you say one is ready with the ChatGPT on the phone or AI tool on the phone, dump something and get one full page and say, okay, I'm done with the subject. Okay, okay, is it okay now? There'll be a counter question coming up, which was otherwise the case that they would say, sir, I tried my best. Please let me know if there are any doubts. Now that's not the case. It says, sir, I'm done with work.
Yeah.
But the point is, what kind of inputs you are giving, what exactly you are wanting the AI to assist you with is not done something very, very safely. It has to be used very intelligently in the sense that to use the AI tool also, you need to get down to understanding what is your exact requirement. And specifically in law, you are dealing with human emotions, you are dealing with human subjects. There, what happens is that any kind of deviations, you might use AI for any reasons, but still that human touch has to be there to finalize a document or to present the document. So it has to be used very intelligent, can't be taken for granted.
So it would be safe to say that AI can actually help you, aid you, but you need not feel threatened, but you should know how to use AI rather than just blindly following something and submitting it.
Precisely, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that holds true for everything when people use AI, and that is where in our last discussion we were thinking that prompt engineering, people should know what to ask of AI. If you ask it the correct question, then you can expect a correct answer.
In one more, I will add on one point on this also. Even considering the fact that you post the right question to AI and it gives you a page of probable answers, it might go close, it might go far off, it might touch base and go. But then what happens is the document which is generated by AI has to be read for two reasons. One reason is that, okay, an intelligent machine has given you some data or some information. You can't just dump it on other person's table and say, okay, you do it. That's not the way it works. Especially in law, if you are generating a document, you would need to examine the document, how close is it to the given facts of the case. I will go on to add this is that if suppose I issue about 100 legal notices in a year's time, I would say every legal notice is different by itself. It might run very close, but then there will be a very thin line that we have to pass through. That line, if it is not covered, you are thrown out of the court. So a document so generated has to be patiently, that's what I said, one has to have resilience in this. So patiently read over, you have to understand whether it is covering that thin line of fact in our case or not. Only then adopt that document, otherwise you are going to do a bad work.
Yeah. So the nuances of case, even though they might fall under the same category, are different, and hence you cannot blindly go by one response.
Yes.
True.
It can never be insofar as law is concerned.
Makes sense. I agree on that with you. One question, doctor, which I was talking to somebody and they told me that how can a young lawyer build a career in arbitration or alternative dispute resolution ADR? What should they start learning if they are aspiring to get into this?
Well, see, arbitration is a subject which comes after understanding the law by itself. For example, if you read Indian Contract Act or if you read any management contract, those documents are governed by a particular act. Let's say we are analyzing the same under Indian Contract Act. Now, if you understand the subject called Contract Act, that is when you will be able to understand whether you can give you a solution either by way of a court proceedings or by way of an arbitration proceedings or by way of a mediation proceedings. See, alternate dispute resolution system is something which will basically help you to avoid the lengthy and the laborious court process. Because court goes by certain guidelines, certain calendar dates, certain decisions that are evidence, etc. Arbitration is kind of, it's a private justice by consent. You give your client a justice by consent by passing an award with participation from both the parties, not taking it, not stretching it too far in the name of provision of law, etc. You would address the point of dispute. Such dispute will be addressed by consent and there is a private justice passed over by way of an award. So that award will always be binding. It's like an order given by a civil court and it's be binding on the parties. That is good. So it saves their time, it saves everything. That is there insofar as arbitration is concerned. But then arbitration, before you thinking about going to arbitration or before you think that you can arbitrate a matter, you would need to have some understanding of this subject. which you will otherwise learn in law. Plus, when you're learning in law, you will also have to practice that for a period of time to actually get into it.
True.
Now, normally what's happening is since the gates of the arbitration are opened out, people are thinking that all right, let's call two parties, let's talk about it, cup of tea, and say okay, do this, do that, and that's all. That's not the way it works. It requires special understanding of the subject. Only then you can get into arbitration. But yes, the advantages are it is a private justice by consent, so that the justice happens very almost kind of not wasting much of time, 1 or 2 sittings, it is done. That's a different thing altogether. So
one reason I asked you is I have seen a lot of people who have done BSc, BCom, and they are suddenly excited and enrolling to do ADR. So I was like, okay, does it make sense? So I had this doubt in my mind.
Yeah, alternate dispute resolution, this what happens is here. The thing is, as I said, unless you have an understanding of a legally binding area or a legally binding subject, for example, Indian Contract Act, which brings about all binding rules and regulations, which necessarily takes the disputed parties to go through even to a court of law or to that of an arbitration. Unless you have an understanding of law, it is not that simple and easy to get into these kind of areas. That's most important. Yeah, sometimes I've seen in my legal span of career also some people getting into these areas that say, all right, I am a mechanical engineer, I'm a civil engineer, I will be very easily able to follow law. Well, there's nothing much we can comment on that, intelligence that they claim of. They might be intelligent, but the point is, again, it drives back to the area whether you really have that kind of subject with you in terms of law. Then you are there. Otherwise, it causes a lot of inconvenience in understanding the subject itself.
So the foundation of law will actually make a person more effective in ADR compared to a person who doesn't have the basic understanding and wants to jump into ADR. Maybe there are exception cases, but on a broad level.
Yeah, exception cases are there. For example, that if you are dealing with a matter that calls for an arbitration, especially like a computer code written by a software engineer. It definitely it falls out of the scope of a lawyer or falls out of the scope of an arbitrator who might have understanding of the technology, but then it definitely calls for a technical expertise on that given point.
True.
But then once you get that technical expertise on a point, which actually makes the subject clear that who's the actual claimant on that particular point, then that same has to be again written under law.
True.
So it is important. That's what I mean to say. It is important.
Yeah, got it. One point, this out of my experience, my niece has been studying law. So at times she used to tell in the night, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night, in one of the reputed institutes that we have moot court now. I used to tell 9 o'clock in the night they have moot court. They used to tell, yeah, we will have whenever the faculty is there, we do that. So as per you, how important are internships, moot courts and professional networks during the law school studying time?
Moot courts and internships are two different aspects. Yes, both are important.
Okay.
Internship basically, calls for a reason that the upcoming law graduate or the graduate who's going to kind of adopt to get into the legal practice, they should have requisite information as to what happens in a court of law. What are the procedural aspects? How do we go about it? How do we deal with filing of the cases, etc.? That is very important for an intern to understand, because what they would be going through in their academics is that complete understanding of the subject, writing project works, etc. All that is there, but then this is the practical training where they will try to get some information into it. That's how it goes. Insofar as moot courts are concerned, moot courts basically help the law students to actually get themselves used to how the cases are presented, what could be the way it is presented, how the court mannerisms ought to be followed, how the court disciplines ought to be followed, how the subject has to be understood and presented, what is the way, how if you are presenting your case, which is civil in nature, for example, how the case has to be presented before the court of law, and how you read the mind of the court, how do you proceed with your articulations. These are the things that will be. But as you said that someone is calling for a moot court in the 9 o'clock, that you have to leave it to the best prudence of the college management itself, because what they are doing, what they are not doing is not in our control.
Yeah.
Just anything and everything they do, because they say these are modern days. everything is modern. So having a mood court at 9 o'clock may be modern according to them.
Oh, it happens, doctor. I'm telling you, I've heard it so many times. And I asked them, I said 9 o'clock. They said, yeah, for us, there are timings are not like restricted. We are given rest in the evening. And then we are told we will assemble back in the night. I said, okay. So I was impressed. I said, okay, maybe makes sense. That's how things are moving nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay. So one last question, doctor. We often speak about ethics in legal practice. Now, if a young lawyer is starting his journey, what would you advise that how do they balance between their ambition with integrity in today's competitive environment?
As I said in the beginning of answering to one of the questions, as I said, this profession needs a lot of patience. This profession needs a lot of patience to understand the very flow of profession itself in terms of practicing law. And the important aspect of the profession again is that you are dealing with humans and their human disputes. When such things come into play, what happens is that your professional integrity is questioned, is questioned at every stage. No matter how sincere you work, how effectively you work, all that will be left aside, and the integrity will always come in front and stand to be in question. So every lawyer, if believes that this is my case and this is how I'm going to divide the case into different aspects based on the facts and other situations, I present my case to the best of my ability by not misleading myself or not getting carried away or not trying to do anything out of the scope of the case. That is where you are landed. Normally what happens is as I said, human disputes, what happens is there's a lot of human interventions come into play, and the conversations between the client and the lawyer are one-on-one. There will be several admissions made, several times retractions will be done. It is a kind of a thing that today you have one story and tomorrow it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Such kind of situations come into play. So there, what happens is that though you are working on a case, giving all your time, your integrity comes into question, saying that no, yesterday I said this, today you have done that. There are some cases, for example, I say we sit across and talk to a client and we prepare a draft. Normally what we do is we prepare a draft and share a draft across the table and tell them to read. In one of the the grounds that we raise, there could be a probability of if or that, if or this. That point also has been caught by the clients, and they say that okay, this lawyer is in touch with the other side, hence there is a change in the draft. So these kind of challenges you come across. So any student, any young lawyer who picks up the profession must stick to the strict aspect of working very professionally, do their job, just work within the parameters of the subject or the law. If his work involves working in 1 to 3 areas, just work and move out of it. That brings about confidence, else the lawyer will always be in dispute.
Yeah, great. So going forward, we will have more of interaction with you, and we will try to understand about cybercrime and also how to protect themselves and what are the legal remedies available. And I want to thank you that you have agreed to do the series with us. And I'm sure with this episode, a lot of youngsters who are aspiring to take up law as a profession will get some inputs from that. Any final message from your side for these youngsters? You have reiterated many times resilience, patience. You have told some things which I think are really worth telling these to the youngsters, that these are qualities you need to have. But any specific advice if they want to take up law as a career?
Certainly, most certainly, any aspiring youngster who's interested in choosing law as career can always take up, because it's a very, very challenging profession. All I said is that before getting into this, anybody who's choosing to become a lawyer or pick up this profession should talk to themselves and see, do I have this really in me, that I will bear all the troubles coming out of this in understanding the human disputes. If they are, definitely can go forward. And yes, it is a very challenging profession. Going forward, what happens is you will be doing such important cases that will leave you with utmost satisfaction. saying that I touched base upon such a sensitive aspect of the society and I could finally get justice for that particular person. That leaves you with a great deal of satisfaction, and it is indeed very good service to the society. Definitely a challenging profession, definitely a good profession, provided it is played within the rules.
True. I agree with you on that. So thank you for taking our time, doctor, and we will connect. We'll keep connecting with you in future for the other episodes. And thank you once again for your time.
You're welcome, and yes, for sure, I'll be more than happy to continue this journey with you.